Another way to add detail to your polygonal models is to use Extrude. Now, Extrude is typically used on faces, but it can also be used on edges and vertices. So let's take a look at how to extrude some faces, and then we'll move on to edges and vertices. Now, here I have my model, and as you can see, I've added some extra detail here. And let's go ahead and turn off the reference layer so we can see this a little bit better. Now, in this model, we want this arm to be a little bit higher. Now, we could certainly do that by moving vertices and inserting edge loops, but let's go ahead and use Extrude to do that. So we use Extrude by selecting a component and then extruding it. So I'm going to right click, and this time we're going to go into face mode. So I'm going to go ahead and select or shift select all of these faces here. So basically everything along the top of the arm of that chair. And then under Edit Mesh, we have an Extrude command. Now, the hotkey for that is Control E. When we do that, notice how it brings up this additional icon as well as this interface here. So the first thing we do is let's just play with these icons here. The first one allows us to pull up and move the additional faces. So if I want, I can pull this straight up, and that brings those faces into play. I can move this left, right, or up and down. I can scale. So if I want to make this smaller or a little bit narrower, I can do that. And I can also type in numbers here. So I can change the thickness here, which is almost the same as pulling it up. I can change the offset, which is basically kind of like a bevel. I can change the number of divisions. If I want to add in a bunch more detail, I could certainly do that. Maybe I'll add in 2 here. And then we also have what's called Keep Faces Together. Now, typically, when you extrude multiple faces, you want them to be stuck together. In this case, if I were to select one of these faces and move it, we would have them all stuck together. But if I were to say select multiple ones of these and do another extrude, let's do a Control E, bring it together, and if we turn Keep Faces Together off, watch what happens. I take this one here and I move it. These are all now separate. So when we keep faces together, it extrudes it as one block. If we don't keep faces together, it'll extrude them individually, which can give you some very nice effects. But regardless, I'm going to go ahead and just undo this. Now, if we look at the front view here and turn on our reference, you'll see that I've got some additional detail that I can use to model the rest of my arm. Now, I also have the back of this chair as well. Now, I'm going to go ahead and turn off my reference again, and let's do another extrude. Now, this back of this chair needs to have this kind of structure that goes over the arm, and we can do that again by extruding. So let's go into face mode, select that face, do Control E, or we can do Edit Mesh Extrude. And again, we can move it out, we can add divisions, and we can basically sculpt that however we want once we're done. So in this case, I might select this vertex here and move it down so that it kind of matches the arm. Now, in addition to extruding faces, we can also extrude edges and vertices. So I'm going to just go ahead and make a second object here, just so that we have something to work with. Basically, I'm just going to create a second polygonal cube. It doesn't really matter the dimensions. And I'm going to go to my attribute editor, and let's go ahead and give it just a little bit of detail here. So now that I have this, we can do some other types of extrude. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is select one of these faces, or actually let's select these 4 faces and delete them. Now, probably the most useful of the other extrude commands is extrude edge. So if I want to, I can select an edge, or I can double click to select a loop. And then I can extrude that just by selecting Control E. And again, this will allow me to select that edge, move it in or out, or once it's extruded, I can just hit W and go into move mode and bring that up. So what we've done is we've actually extruded this edge up. Now, if I want to, I can select maybe a smaller subset of those edges and extrude again. And as you can see, we're basically just pulling off just a single face. And again, we have all of the controls that we have before. We can add in additional divisions. We can do an offset. We can change the thickness as well. Now, extruding vertices is a little bit different, but let's go ahead and select a vertex and extrude it by hitting Control E. Now, as you can see, it creates this kind of tetrahedral or diamond shape. And then we can change the width, the height, and the number of divisions. Now, this might be great for making things such as spikes or something like that. Now, if we want, we could certainly select multiple vertices and extrude those as well, and again, get similar effects. So as you can see, Extrude is a very, very useful tool that you can use in all sorts of modeling situations.